Trump administration has not published foreign assistance data since its 2025 review of foreign assistance. I can't get my hands on information to even know what the hell you all are doing. I hear your words. I agree with your words. It's your actions that deeply disturb me. And getting information in a hearing is what we're supposed to be doing. But it seems like we're woefully prepared to fulfill questions on the most basic aspects of what should be a whole-of-government counterterrorism.
Senator Cory Booker delivered one of the hearing's most passionate moments when he accused the Trump administration of saying it supports religious freedom while slashing the very programs designed to protect vulnerable communities. His message was blunt: America's actions in Africa no longer match its words.
I guess one of the things I'm confused about is in Nigeria, we have Christians being killed as a result of terrorism. And it's disturbing to me. I'm a Christian. But my faith is rooted in unconditional love for all peoples. And so I have a hearing where people keep talking about the Christians being slaughtered, but there are Muslims being slaughtered. In fact, considerably more Muslims are being slaughtered in Nigeria by terrorism than Christians. I would think the Christian faith would want to center that in the levels of urgency we feel. In fact, if you actually know the Bible, the story of the Good Samaritan is about the urgency to love those who don't pray like you, don't look like you, may not be from your same community, but it's about the existential urgency in the Christian faith to love all God's children. So, am I correct, Ms. Jacobson, that Muslims are being slaughtered by terrorist attacks in Nigeria?
Yes, you are correct. The terrorist threat has absolutely touched Muslims, Christians, a whole range of faiths across Nigeria.
Is the administration concerned about the slaughtering of Muslims?
We are, the president and the secretary have made clear that we must protect religious liberty, and that certainly applies to the terrorism threat that we are seeing in Nigeria. But I can speak more broadly to our counterterrorism efforts across Nigeria, where we have held the Nigerian government's feet to the fire to address their terrorist threats, both in the north, where we see ISIS West Africa and Boko Haram committing horrific attacks, as well as in the Middle Belt, where we see Fulani militias targeting particularly Christians in that space.
Well, again, what's really frustrating to me is I hear those words, but they remain empty to me when I'm told that an administration supports religious liberty and then cuts programs that we have in a bipartisan way in this committee have funded to support religious freedom and religious liberty. I understand that that is a State Department decision, but yet again, we are saying one thing, and then our actions truly belie that and display a hypocrisy that's stunning to me. And then we say that the only solution to this, since religious groups are being persecuted, is then to engage in the only tool it seems we know how to use, which is military action, as opposed to investing in stability that could help that not only that military action not be necessary, but to protect religious groups on the ground. This is really very frustrating. It is a hypocrisy that delegitimizes us as a nation, like in all the persecuted minorities, to the point where we see a genocide in Sudan, but this administration, with all its bluster, rushes to South Africa to protect the persecution of white people, alleged persecution, I could say, which makes a mockery of our country's priorities. And this is the disconnect on the continent that not only undermines our stated missions, but undermines us as the partner of choice amongst many of these nations. When they see us act with such blatant hypocrisy, where our words don't align with our actions, or in my case, the faith that's often used. I'm going to stop here and as my ranking member settles in and allow her, Mr. Chairman, to ask some questions.
Senator Shaheen, although I didn't mean to get you just when you sat down.
Yeah, don't do that to me when I just got here. You keep going.
I will ask one more.
I am confident Senator Booker can fill the time.
I'm sure he can.
I will ask for. I will ask one more question. I was trying to be deferential, Senator. Forgive me. The administration is proposing to cut funding for the peacekeeping operations account, which is by 92% next year. This account has been the main source of funding for State Department-led counterterrorism programs in Africa, including programs that increase burden sharing and help train local security, including elite counterterrorism units in partnership with countries so they can do the critical work on the ground. Congress, again, in a bipartisan fashion, provided $355 million to this account for this fiscal year. What is the administration's plans to use these funds in Africa?
Senator, I'd be happy to take that back and speak to you more robustly with my IO colleagues as well on the future for peacekeeping expenses.
Yeah, again, as I said in my opening remarks, the urgency to have a whole-of-government approach and the fact that we're having a hearing on stopping counterterrorism, the fact that my partners on the other side of the aisle and I put $355 million in an account to do just that, that doesn't involve a military, but actually involves a State Department who has gutted so many of the groups that focus on Africa, it continues to highlight and undermine why so many of us today are so frustrated. Terrorist groups thrive in areas where there's weak law enforcement, and the justice sector has lost capacity. Congress has funded programs to help partner with countries with these issues. In fact, again, these are bipartisan programs to help strengthen countries' judiciary sectors and their law enforcement. These programs have helped law enforcement and judicial systems investigate and stop illicit activities such as human trafficking, weapons, drug smuggling, extortion regimes. With so many programs being terminated, like these, that clearly would go a long way to accomplishing our goals, where inspector generals and others have said very bluntly that investments in these programs save us more money that often has to be spent in military operations. What is going on with some of those programs that maybe you can enlighten us with what the department is doing to strengthen the judiciary and local law enforcement in some of these problem areas?
Senator, happy to provide a more of a comprehensive review, but just taking, for instance, in Nigeria specifically, I mean, INL does continue to provide anecdotally support for police training. Police training still does occur across the continent. I'd have to come back with a more robust list.
Well, I would really love for you to come back. The Trump administration has not published foreign assistance data since its 2025 review of foreign assistance. I can't get my hands on information to even know what the hell you all are doing. I hear your words. I agree with your words. It's your actions that deeply disturb me. And getting information in a hearing is what we're supposed to be doing. But it seems like we're woefully prepared to fulfill questions on the most basic aspects of what should be a whole-of-government counterterrorism policy. So, Mr. Speaker, I really do hope you provide this, and I'll ask these questions to this hearing for the record, and I hope I can get my partnership with my colleague of just asking for the facts. It is very frustrating to me not to have information or even explanation, as Senator Coons has said, for things that for years we worked on and that the President of the United States in that first term seemed to be all in on. That Secretary Rubio, when he was a senator, partnered with us on. And so I need more information. I need more transparency. I need more accountability, because if everything I'm seeing and reading about is true, then yes, your statement is actually true. You put it bluntly. To this administration, Africa is peripheral rather than a core theater for U.S. interests. I defer now to my much more senior and esteemed colleague.
This hearing wasn't simply about counterterrorism in Africa. It was about whether the United States is backing up its promises with meaningful action. Senator Cory Booker opened by challenging what he described as an incomplete narrative about violence in Nigeria. He acknowledged that Christians have suffered horrific terrorist attacks but stressed that Muslims are also being killed in large numbers by extremist groups. His point was that terrorism in Nigeria is not targeting just one religious community, it is devastating many communities, regardless of faith. Booker argued that if the United States truly believes in religious freedom, it cannot show concern for one group while overlooking the suffering of another. Citing the Christian teaching of the Good Samaritan, he said genuine faith demands compassion for all people, not just those who share the same religion. The State Department witness agreed that terrorist groups in Nigeria have targeted both Christians and Muslims. She said the administration remains committed to protecting religious liberty and outlined ongoing efforts against groups such as Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa. But Booker wasn't satisfied. He argued that the administration's actions don't reflect its rhetoric. While officials speak about protecting religious freedom, he said the administration has proposed cutting programs that Congress created, with bipartisan support, to strengthen religious liberty, improve governance, and help local communities prevent violence before it escalates. For Booker, that contradiction undermines America's credibility. The New Jersey Democrat then broadened his criticism, arguing that the administration has relied too heavily on military responses while neglecting diplomacy, development, and institution building. He warned that lasting security isn't achieved through force alone. It also requires investing in effective policing, functioning courts, and stable local institutions that can resist the influence of terrorist organizations. Booker delivered one of his strongest criticisms when he contrasted the administration's response to different crises across Africa. He pointed to the humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan and questioned why, in his view, the administration appeared to devote greater political attention to claims about white South Africans than to the mass suffering taking place elsewhere on the continent. That, Booker argued, makes a mockery of our country's priorities. The hearing then turned to proposed cuts to U.S. peacekeeping and counterterrorism funding. Booker noted that Congress had approved hundreds of millions of dollars for programs that train local security forces, strengthen judicial systems, and combat human trafficking, organized crime, and terrorism. When he asked how the administration intended to continue those efforts despite deep proposed funding cuts, the witness was unable to provide detailed answers during the hearing and said she would follow up later. That response only intensified Booker's frustration. He argued that lawmakers cannot effectively oversee foreign policy if they lack basic information about how programs are being funded or whether they still exist. Transparency, he said, is essential to accountability. From a democratic perspective, Booker's central argument was that American leadership is strongest when it combines security with diplomacy, humanitarian assistance, and long-term investment in democratic institutions. Simply reducing foreign assistance while expecting military force to solve complex regional problems, he argued, risks making both the United States and its international partners less secure. At the same time, it's worth recognizing that hearings like this often feature competing policy visions. Booker criticized the administration's proposed priorities, while administration officials defended their broader commitment to counterterrorism but did not provide detailed explanations for every program Booker referenced during the exchange. The broader takeaway is that this debate wasn't just about Africa, it was about what kind of global leader the United States wants to be. Democrats like Booker argue that protecting American interests abroad means investing in diplomacy, development, and partnerships alongside security. In their view, when America scales back those investments, it risks losing both its influence and its moral leadership at a time when global competition and instability are only growing.